Welcome to Crypto G's. I'm very excited. We are live right now on Binance Live, and I have a very good special guest for you. It's Mr. Mark Zalan. Welcome to Crypto G's, Mark. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's go straight to the point. Let's tell everybody from the community who is Mark. What is your background, blockchain, DeFi, and the fintech space?
Great. Thanks for having me, and welcome everyone listening to us. Thanks for joining us on a Friday. I hope it's as beautiful a day as it is where I am. It's nice and sunny, and I guess 28 degrees, so perfect weather. So my name is Mark Zalan. I'm part of the GoMining team. My background, I guess, is 20 plus years in fintech. So I started off in technology and enterprise IT, working for a company called GE, General Electric, fairly well known Fortune. It used to be Fortune 50. I guess that times have changed over the last 25 years. But I've spent 20 plus years in enterprise IT and financial technology, financial services. I was the head of IT function for a commercial retail bank with a multi-billion-dollar asset balance sheet. After that, I've had my own mobile apps development company in the 2000 early tens, I guess is the right way to say it. 2014, 2015. So I've had a fairly good wealth of technology and finance background, which has prepared me fairly well for this role. I want to say a little bit. I was a latecomer into the Bitcoin and the crypto space, as I think many people coming from traditional finance. I was very skeptical initially, and the first time that I had a really in-depth look into Bitcoin was in 2013, and I came away thinking, this is some sort of fad that's just going to go away over the next couple of years. Then, I had a second go at it in 2015, and pretty much came away with the same thinking process. And then back in 2019, 2020, I guess is when I really had to recognize that A, this thing is here to stay, and B, there's so much development and growth, and really whatever growth is happening in financial services is pretty much happening in the Web3 DeFi space to a large extent. There's some stuff happening in traditional finance, be that consumer commercial functions, but really if you look at the depth of changes and the scale of changes that's taking place in DeFi, it's not generational. It's multi-generational. It's what's happening now is probably can be compared to the 50s and the 60s when the plastic cards came out, and that just revolutionized the way people used finance. So when you look at things like that take place in DeFi today, where people can tokenize and lend out peer to peer, that is a paradigm shifting technology that, yes, will take time to mature, and probably a year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever. But basically, these are changes that take place very, very rarely in financial markets, and I think this is where we are. It's a very exciting moment for anybody that's involved in it, and that sort of recognition and understanding is what helped me make the transition and focus on blockchain and DeFi as the next frontier, so to speak. And then when we look at the role that Bitcoin plays in that whole ecosystem as the first and the biggest by market cap, that's the space that we want to play in, where we have a lot of expertise, and that's why I sort of made the switch. I guess I could say.
Well, look, guys, I think everybody's taking right now some notes because yeah, but you have an amazing experience. Like I have a lot of guests on the show, but having somebody not only in finance, also technology, working for the biggest multinationals, Fortune 500. Um, I get quite excited about hear more about your story and how that led all the way to go mining. But just a quick thing, Mark. There was a little bit of noise on the maybe
Mhm.
it's the headphones. Maybe just
Let me see.
maybe you switch it off and switch it back on.
Yeah, no problem.
I just want to make sure everybody hear you properly because yeah,
Yeah.
you're a proper not only crypto OG, you are a finance OG. Okay, so how was the transition? Okay, I have a couple of friends that are still in the finance industry. They run hedge funds in the Middle East. They work for banks in the UK, and it's not easy. It's not like, they're trying to get the grasp, obviously, because they have high education and they go to the events in traditional finance. But what was that thing that made you move full time into Web3, and how you ending up with GoMining as the
Right.
company?
Right. So I guess in terms of making the change and just recognizing that Web3 is here to stay is a lot of it, I think, is tied to experience. So you as you get older, hopefully get wiser, and that's not always the case, and that's not always the case for me either. But I think on this one, I just once you go through, if you're in technology, you go through technology cycles fairly often, every 3 to 4 years. Some new technology comes along and it follows the same path. And this is the Gartner, what's called the Gartner hype cycle. It's been described by Gartner Consulting, I think 25 years ago, where a new technology comes in, it gets all hyped up, everybody gets starts to project ridiculously unrealistic expectations to it. Inevitably, those expectations crash against the market reality that whereas the technology might be very promising and might one day really do wonderful things, it will take years and years to figure out how to actually deploy it in a meaningful way into commercial space, commercial applications, into enterprises, into consumers, etc. And as that work happens, the expectations on that hype sort of come crashing down. You go into a phase where everybody is lost all of the excitement around it, but then slowly you work yourself out and you sort of start to build up into real world applications. So I've started my technology career, I guess, in 1998 in Silicon Valley, which is where I grew up originally. So I've been around the technology ecosystem and the technology startup space for a long time, and I've seen many of those hype cycles come around. I was there in the industry when the internet bubble burst in 2000, and that was very educational, I guess I should say. And then as the industries recovered and I started gaining experience in the technology space through the 2000s to 2010s, you see these cycles repeating themselves and replaying, right? So, but eventually you figure out that some things will get washed out and will go away, but some things are here to stay, and only time will tell which is which. It's impossible to make the call, or it's at least I don't know of a way to make the call during the early days. Maybe some people are more prescient and they're able to do it, but most people and most pundits in the industry are not. So once Bitcoin has turned 10, I guess, in 2019, and I started looking back at the history of it, and you just have to be clear-eyed and recognize that once that's here, once it passes through those growing pain years of, second, third, fourth year past the hype cycle, and it's actually still here, and the capitalization is still growing, and there's real actual value, tangible value that gets created for people using it. And I know there's a lot of conversations around whether Bitcoin provides value or not, but I think those conversations over the past, I guess, almost 15 years that Bitcoin's been around, to me, if you're looking at it from an evidence-based perspective, those questions have been answered. They've been answered in, during political and economic upheavals in places like Ukraine, in places like Turkey, in places like Venezuela, where government action just completely destroyed the economic sort of model, the economic framework of people looking after their families, looking after their savings. And, for people evacuating Ukraine a year and a half ago, crypto was the thing that allowed them to take their savings with them. For people that are looking for a better future for their families out of Venezuela, for instance, crypto is the entity that's allowing them to make that journey. When you look at in places with high inflation, and I realize that in Europe and the US, high inflation became a factor of everyday life only in the last year or two, but for the rest of the people, for the rest of the population of the world, depending on where you are, from Latin America, South America, to Africa, to Asia, high inflation has been a factor in everyday life for a very long time. And part of a solution that people would look for in terms of protecting their savings, crypto has fit into that space very, very well, and Bitcoin's fit into that space very well. So I think there's a little bit of disingenuousness, I would say, around the conversation of does crypto provide value to everyday people. I think if you look at it in a transparent fashion, without preconceived notions that you're trying to bring to the table, the answer has to be yes. And if you have any doubts, have a conversation with a person from one of the places that we just mentioned, and they'll tell you about the value that crypto brings. So in what allowed me to make that transition is understanding those points, understanding that this is the value that crypto brings. I think now that people in Europe and the US have been are coming face to face with the higher rate of inflation than we've seen over the past, we've been seeing over the past 15 years or so, 20 years, maybe longer. That the fact that Bitcoin is structured the way it's structured, its deflationary nature, its ability to hold value and increase value will provide a lot more of a tangible sort of feel for people coming from those places. But just thinking about those points and the longevity, and then I did a really interesting exercise. I said in 2000, when we were saying, well, does Bitcoin have a future? And by that point, we had 10 years worth of data to look at already. And in making that judgment, and said, okay, so in the 2010s, with everything that's been taking place and all of the commodity cycles and all of the financial sort of changes and breakthroughs in consumer and commercial finance, if you had to go back, everybody always wishes they could do that, but if you had to go back to 2009, 2010, and you had to make one asset class selection for where you would want to put, $100 or $500, $1,000, whatever amount of money. If you had to pick one asset class, one asset to put some money into, turn around, go away, and come back 10 years later, what would that asset be? And there's been a lot of things that have performed extremely well. Tesla stock, Apple stock, whatever. Nvidia has been doing amazing returns. There's been commodity cycles. Gold has done very well, et cetera, et cetera. But everything pales compared to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Everything. You could probably get some altcoins that probably generated some sort of obscene returns, but generated obscene risk profiles as well. But in terms of something that is meaningful and tangible, it was Bitcoin by far. And once I did that exercise, you just have to recognize reality, and the facts are the facts. You may not like what they're saying, but there's not a good saying, you deny reality at your own peril. So as somebody that had that background in finance and technology to sort of build the context around it and then arrive at that conclusion, this is what got me to make the transition. And then once I started, once you start to look at this new paradigm, we just had some friends that introduced us, mutual friends that made the introduction with the GoMining team, and it was actually a very natural fit, I should say, because the team in place at that time had that pure sort of entrepreneurial vision and energy around it, and that's usually how startups get started. Is you have some people with vision and drive, and they start building something, and then once it gains traction and starts to grow, oftentimes the people that had the vision and had the kickoff ability, they oftentimes don't have the background to sort of go from a small company to mid-sized company to a large scale company, and this is where my background and sort of years of training and experience at GE have come in very well, because I this is something that I've done before, and this is something that I know how to do quite well. And it was basically, right place, right time, right needs on both sides of the equation, and so we hit it off, and we went forward together. And that was, we started having the conversations, I guess 2020, 21 is when I sort of joined the team.
Okay. Wow. I hope everybody getting the grasp. Something that got my attention that you just mentioned, that you live in Silicon Valley, which is amazing. So not only finance, also technology. I have experience in 2016. You probably know this guy called Wences Casare, the founder of Chapo.
No, actually.
So he's actually in this book called Digital Gold by Nathaniel Popper, the untold story of Bitcoin, and he just tells from a philosophical point of view how Bitcoin was created, right? And then going back to Silicon Valley, I was in 2016 in an event here in London, and they were talking about compliance regulations, and the CFO back then, he was the CFO of Chapo. There was friend of Wences Casare. He was telling me he was too much for him. Regulations. But when somebody like your caliber joined Web3 with all the experience, it made me happy, Mark, to be honest. It made me happy and also made me happy to interview people like you, because you bring the expertise into a project that you want to make successful as well, with all the experience. So congratulations for that. But let's dive into GoMining, because, by the way, the name is amazing. But in a nutshell, how was GoMining started? How was funded? Like how was the first team?
Right. So the first iteration of GoMining is basically Bitcoin mining. And this is where our roots are, and this is where our expertise is. And in 2017, just a group of people got together and said, "Hey, this makes sense. Let's try to do this as a business on a larger scale." They went off and they built a data center. They obviously, some things they did well, some things they didn't, they did not so well. And then the typical sort of startup story happened. You get bumps and bruises, and you grow, and you go on to the next stage and next stage. And eventually, when 2020 happened, 2021, by that time, the hosting business, the mining and the hosting business was pretty established. But the challenge that, let me take a step back a little bit and talk. I'll relate the conversation that we had with the founder when we first met, and we basically said, look, this makes sense if you believe in Bitcoin. And when we say believe in Bitcoin, we mean that if you believe, if your investment thesis, speaking from a financial background, if your investment thesis today is that Bitcoin, X number of months, years, whatever, into the future will be worth more than it is today, and for a lot of people at this point, it's more of an article of faith. And actually, it's not. It's always an article of faith. It's when you're talking about future asset prices, for instance, right? Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows. You can say that Apple stock will be worth more tomorrow than it is today, and it will be an article of faith. It may have some basis in reality, but obviously nobody can predict the future. But if you believe today and you want to make an investment in Bitcoin, you basically have two options. Option one is you can do what's called a buy and hold, right? You buy Bitcoin, you hold it, and hope that the price appreciates. The other way that you can obtain Bitcoin is you can mine it. And this has been around, this has been a core process of sort of buying into Bitcoin since the early days back in 2009. Now, the challenge with that becomes is that mining Bitcoin has become a very complex, capital intensive process. So back in 2009, you could run Bitcoin on your laptop. You can run Bitcoin mining on your laptop, and and get some Bitcoin mining rewards that way. Today, it's a very complex endeavor from a technology perspective, from an organizational perspective, from a finance perspective, etc. You have to invest millions of dollars to build purpose-built data centers. You have to. I mean, this is not technical activity. This is actual boots on the ground, nuts and bolts data centers. You have to bring in high capacity electric supplies. You have to buy hundreds and thousands of special purpose-built mining devices that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. You have to be able to acquire that equipment. You have to ship it to your data center, which you have to have built up previously. You have to host it. You have to manage, monitor it. You have to provide break fix for it, etc. I mean, anybody that has any background in IT knows exactly what I'm talking about. But this is actually more complicated because you're not running general purpose computing equipment. You're actually running highly specialized computing equipment. So instead of having 10, 20, 30 potential suppliers, you have 2 or 3 or 4. And instead of being able to rely on the labor pool of people that have general technology background and skill set, you have to look for people that have very, very specialized technological skill set. Either that, or you have to find smart people and then invest heavily into training them in your specific area of expertise. So all of that, when we say, you could mine Bitcoin and get into Bitcoin that way, all of the above that I just listed basically makes it prohibitive. So theoretically, an average person could do it, but in reality, it's kind of like trying to build your own car. It sounds nice, but where the world is today, you're not going to be able to do it in a meaningful way, competing with anybody from Tesla to General Motors. So in 2020, I guess, 2020, the conversations within the GoMining team basically went, okay, so we've got this business, we have this expertise, but what we really want to do as people that have a long-term belief and vision in Bitcoin is we want to make mining accessible to average people.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say average, we mean simply people that don't do this for a living, that don't spend 12 hours a day thinking about how to mine Bitcoin. And that's how GoMining was born, pretty much, is with the idea of making that accessible to somebody that long term has the same beliefs and expectations that we do around Bitcoin, but doesn't have the capability to invest in Bitcoin mining. Because again, historically, the ROI on mining Bitcoin has been much better than on the buy and hold strategy.
Wow.
So this is where the entrepreneurial juices sort of started to flow, and we said, okay, well, can we leverage and when I say we, I mean the GoMining team. This was before I joined. I actually joined for that vision, not the hosting side. But I thought the idea was really revolutionary in terms of making this old school, heavy duty industrial financial investment in data centers and running them and maintaining them and mining Bitcoin, making that essentially tokenized and available to an everyday person. So the idea was basically, okay, somebody has $100. How can we make it possible for them to jump on the train with us and join us for the ride into mining Bitcoin? And so obviously tokenization is a large part of the blockchain future, and really the main avenue for how the promise of blockchain in everyday life is going to make meaningful changes for everyday people. So we said, okay, let's see if we can tokenize it. Let's see if we can figure it out. And 6 months later, version 1 of GoMining came out, and when the problem and you can sort of see the problem that we were trying to solve by the way the product was structured. We said we want to make it easy, and it was extremely easy to get into and out of. You could, it's a token, you list it on exchanges, you buy the token, and the next morning you tie it to a Bitcoin wallet, and the next morning your proportion of mining rewards gets deposited into your Bitcoin wallet. And every morning you wake up, you get a nice push notification from your Bitcoin wallet, and the day starts off on the right foot, so to speak. So that was version 1 of GoMining. And that came out in May 2021, and it followed the typical startup process. So we said, okay, we have an idea. Let's put an MVP together. Let's put it out on the market. Let's see if it gains traction. Let's gather market feedback. Let's continuously improve. Let's figure out what version 2 should be, etc., etc. And that's the process that we went through in 21, 22, and up until sort of August. No, I don't want to say August. Up until November of last year. Because that's when we sort of gathered all of the user feedback and started laying out really what the product features should be of version 2. And that set us on to the next big cycle of iteration for version 2 of the GoMining story that came out in August, just recently, the previous month, when we said, okay, how can we take stock of all of the features all of the changes that people have suggested that we make to version 1, and implement them in version 2. And so I know I've been speaking for a while. It's a story
No, I like
that
it.
I love telling.
It's very interesting. Let me just do a recap for everybody, because this is where it's getting even more interesting, because GoMining is not just a company that just came out 1 year ago, 2 years ago. It's a company that's been working since 2017. And then you join with all the experience for the version 1, which is trying to make mining accessible for everybody, right? Because
Right.
the only way to get crypto is buy and hold, especially Bitcoin or mining. You're making it easy. But something that really got my attention is like you're already testing products. You are now in the version 2. That's the best way to build a company. Just releasing products, testing it, improving it, and releasing second version, third version. That's what the big companies they do. Like we have Apple, Microsoft. So you are doing that right now within crypto, which is amazing. But this is taking me to the next question, because I think so. One big part of any Web3 company is community, right? So what is the current community of gold mining? Like, what are the regions or countries you are targeting specifically? I remember at the beginning you mentioned a couple of countries that they need, like Argentina, Turkey, Venezuela. That kind of they need crypto solutions. So, but right now, where are you guys focusing that community building?
Yeah, great question, and I wouldn't want to say they need crypto. I maybe rephrased it a little bit, that if you look at inflation rates in Argentina and in Turkey, they're hovering around 100% plus, and traditionally where we've seen a lot of response and a lot of demand is coming out of those countries. Especially, you can track it as inflation rates come out. There's interest coming out of those geographies. Africa is a big place as well, is a big focus area. But I want to maybe just share a little bit that my own surprise, because it's you build the product, and you have an idea of the need that you're trying to solve and how people will apply it, and then sometimes you when the product hits the market, you recognize that you have to recognize that you weren't very good at thinking it through and you weren't very successful. But then there's other times when a product hits the market, and then you just start to be amazed at all of the novel ways that people have started to use your product that you haven't thought of yourself. So this was the same thing with us, in that we were but we were trying to bridge that gap from hardcore sort of crypto enthusiasts that knew very well what Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining was all about, into everyday people that weren't necessarily a large core part of the crypto community, but that already went through sort of the same evolution in their thinking that I'd gone through, and said, okay, well, after 10 years, maybe I should pay attention to Bitcoin, and maybe I should put some of my capital into Bitcoin, and then look for a way to do it. And obviously they could buy and hold, or they could participate in the mining part of it. And that's the part of the market that we were initially looking after. And we knew that it was a very tall order, because crossing that bridge from somebody that's very involved, and it's a challenge for every company. You put a product out, you have what the first adopters that are very much involved into your product, and trying to cross the bridge from them into the general public is always very challenging, and there's no scientific way to do it. So when we put the product out, we thought that most of the people would be people out of the Bitcoin mining community, out of the Bitcoin community. We knew that we had a very solid value proposition for the Bitcoin mining community, actually, because what we were essentially saying is, look, running Bitcoin mining on your own is a very complicated proposition. And there's hundreds of people doing it, and it's sort of like a small business. And we're basically saying, look, we have this specially formulated program where we'll buy your equipment, we'll take it over, we'll start managing it, we'll give you a discounted OTC price for GoMining tokens, and you can basically get rid of the headache that you have in trying to run your own and joining us as part of the GoMining community. And we thought, okay, Bitcoin mining people would be a target demographic. We thought Bitcoin miners would be a target demographic. And then we were initially looking at, I guess, Western Europe, not the US, but I don't want to say Western Europe, but maybe some of the wealthier demographies. Because we were thinking that people would have disposable income that they would be interested in investing in that way. And that's certainly, we certainly have had some traction there. I shouldn't say some. We certainly have had traction there. But I think the geographies that have those economic characteristics that we mentioned about, where there is political and economic upheaval, that there's been a lot of demand from those places. So it's really been across the board, and some of it we've been surprised, but it's been across the board. Again, the changes that happened in China when China essentially banned Bitcoin mining, that drove a certain portion of consumers to join our community. There's a lot of interest in the Middle East, in Dubai, where you're based, and where a lot of the capital is sort of coming together in Dubai and Abu Dhabi around crypto. There's a lot of interest there, and that's probably the part of the world where there's some disposable income that people have that they're looking to invest in meaningful way, but it's been all across the globe. So I'm actually, I can't really say this geography or this country or this region is a focus area and this is not, because honestly, we started with that approach where we sort of prioritized, thought that we would make more headway and more market traction in one region versus the other, but it really hasn't turned out that way. It's been for different reasons, and this is the important part, is that the product started to fulfill different needs for different people, and that's also part of the evolution from version 1 to version 2. So when we started to get the initial market feedback starting in May 2021, we started to go to dig into these stories of how people were using it and why they were using it and what they wanted us to change. And some of our assumptions were tested and turned out to be not correct, and some of the new hypotheses came up. So the changes that we made is basically, we said, part of the issue that we encountered is, because we're so focused on making the product easy to get into and out of, we almost, in a way, we made it too easy, and that became a challenge for us, because from a business perspective, what we do is very long cycles. So we build and manage data centers, and that is a long cycle business. It takes 6 to 9 to 12 months to construct a data center. It takes 6 to 9 months, the procurement cycle for the equipment, where you have to get the order in, you have to get priority in terms of production batches for Bitmain and other manufacturers that manufacture the hardware. You have to put some capital up front to reserve the production space. Then you have to wait for the production to take place. Then you have to take possession of the miners, test them, etc., and then you have to deliver them to wherever your location is. Then you have to put them up in the racks, hook them up, turn them on, etc., manage, monitor, and break fix, and all of that is long cycle businesses. All of that is long cycle projects. So we take $1 today and we make an investment and we start seeing the returns, months and years into the future. And this is where we ran into an issue, is because it was so easy to move in and out of our token that we couldn't take that capital wasn't long term for us. So we that was an issue that we identified. The other issue was, with regards to community building, when you start to dig into it, the way you build the community is you have people come around common goals, right? And a lot of people that were interested in the long-term application of Bitcoin and mining and what we're making available for people, they're looking to be long-term holders of the token, with a year, 2-year, 3-year investment horizons. But then there were other people that were moving in and out of the token and basically playing those little day trading games of if the token moves 1% or 2% during the day, we'll get out, we'll get in when it gets lower, etc., etc. And that was causing a lot of really unproductive challenges for us. So we said, okay, well, we want people to become part of our community, but our community is about long-term future, long-term participation in the project. So let's figure out a way where we can incentivize people to become part of our community in a meaningful way, in a long-term way, and still give others the ability to become customers, to become part of the community, but really sort of clearly identify what we are about and translate that into sort of the terms of how the product works and how rewards are provided. So we said, okay, well, we want to build a long-term ecosystem. We want to incentivize people to become part of our project on a longer-term horizon. So let's make some changes to the way the token works, and let's say that so what we did was we basically introduced VE tokens, voter escrow tokens, where once you have GoMining tokens and they provide the mining rewards to you, we basically make a staking function available where you can say, okay, I'll stake my tokens for a particular length of time, and depending on the length of time that you want to stake them, you have a different reward tier. So the longer you stake the tokens, the higher your sort of reward tier that you can take advantage of in terms of rewards that are provided by the token, firstly. And then secondly, another sort of part of the feedback that we were addressing is governance. So we wanted to give our community a stake in the way that the ecosystem is governed. And so starting with, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we have put up a portion of the rewards for voting, and the community decides how that portion of the rewards gets allocated within the community. So it can go one way, it can go another way, it can go a third way, and that also, the ability to vote is a derivative of the staking and the staking term that members of our community have taken advantage of. So again, we like people to be part of the community for the longer term, and we've built a system of rewards and incentives around our ecosystem to provide monetary rewards for that.
This is what everybody should do. I hope everybody that's listening, I hope everybody that is building, that's how you do it. You launch a project. These are very, Mark, these are very good case of a study of a Web3 company, how it needs to be run. You say something that got my attention, that you want people, you were expecting the community coming from one side, but in novel ways they come from another side. And you were expecting hardcore Web3 people to come on board, but it's coming from different directions. But something that got my attention as well is the amount of work that is behind building an ecosystem like you are doing? You talk about 9 to 12 months, or just the procurement of the hardware, which is crazy. Just procuring, not even, and then another year to arrive, or the logistics. So I'm taking a lot of notes because I'm learning. I'm learning a lot from you guys. I hope everybody's and that's the thing about crypto G's. We want to obviously turn the personal story of the people behind the
Mhm.
projects, and this is the personal story as such. All of this efforts, energy that you're putting together, and having the community, creating governance token, voter score. This is amazing. I'm telling you this
Thank you.
from,
Thank you.
in an honest feedback. Now, you guys are building really well in a bear market, which is making it even more difficult but more rewarding. Now, but what is coming next? What is the next in the roadmap for GoMining? Like any special announcement or events that you guys are looking forward, or the community looking forward?
Look, we just had a major product release, and I, if version one was more of an MVP story, it's really just, we had no idea whether it would be it would get traction in the marketplace. We had no idea whether we were off, in our own fantasies, or whether the demand would actually be there, and the market need was identified correctly. So it was something that we threw together quickly as a proof of concept. We put it out on the market. We tested it, and luckily it was a hit. And the next version is really sort of the first true mature version of the product. So we've taken over a year to go from to the first version of the product. I think for us, and that's what sort of hit production in August. So for the next year to a year and a half, I don't want to put real hardcore timeframes around it, but I think right now we've made a lot of changes. We want to see those changes
Mhm.
sort of play out in the marketplace. We want to work with our user community to get the feedback, sort of qualitative feedback from them. We want to see how the product performs, and how, whether some of the hypotheses that we had will actually turn out to be correct. And obviously, anybody that's done product development knows that half of the stuff that you come up with is going to be just a complete miss. So it's important for us to figure out which one that is, which one is a miss, which one is a hit. We expect that, again, the same dynamic will play out, in that people will start using it in novel ways that we haven't thought of, and we want to keep our eye out for that. So for the next 6 to 9 months, for certain, is just talking about the changes that we've made, why we've made them, the overall story behind the project, sort of having these types of conversations. And I think it's very important for me personally, because part of, I mentioned that my first and the second sort of run-in with Bitcoin, I came away thinking this is not going to be around for a long time. And part of it was because people that were sort of speaking on behalf of it
Mm.
um, just didn't impress me personally. I'll speak for
Okay.
myself. At that time, didn't impress me as having a clear-eyed understanding of how to build products, how to build companies, how to build technologies, how to build ecosystems. It was a lot of people were talking, and but listening to them, relying on my own background at the time, it was apparent that this is more sort of wishful thinking than any sort of tested real world knowledge and experience that was talking. And so that's part of why I ended up thinking for a long time that this thing
Yeah.
is not going to be around. And I think for us, just based on that experience, it's very important to, when we talk about our product and when we talk about our project, is to have a conversation like this and say, look, this is me, this is my background, this is where I came from, this is why we think the way we think, this is why we do the things we do. We recognize that we're not, we don't have a crystal ball. We recognize that we're not going to be 100% right, but we have some pretty good experience, some pretty solid experience in terms of how these things work, how the cycles come together, and this is why we're sort of moving forward purposefully into developing a product. We're not looking to score a hit in 3 to 6 months, hype up some sort of asset, see it jump 11,000% in 2 days, and sort of and leave
Yeah.
and leave the space based on that. It's we've seen cycles before. We've seen bear markets, we've seen bull markets, not in Bitcoin, in other technologies, in other markets. We enjoy doing this. This is something that I think very important that I want to get across is, if it was about making money, we would have stayed with the original sort of the hosting industrial scale mining, Bitcoin mining function, because that is a very profitable space to be in. And we certainly have a large enough share of it to be able to share in those rewards. But it's more fun to set yourself interesting challenges and to apply the resources that you have and the background that you have to making that happen. And again, talking to some of the members of our community and getting the feedback around the ways that our product is impacting their lives in ways that we haven't previously imagined. I think that's one of the it's rewarding, it's fun, it's challenging, it's but that's sort of the community that we're trying to build, not just the wider community around GoMining, but the team itself is also spread out across 30 plus countries. We've got a couple of hundred people between the hosting side and the token side that are working to make this happen, and it's a large scale operation. And this is one of the selection criteria that we apply, is we want people to work with us that have fun doing this, and that see purpose in it. And obviously, one thing that you learn fairly quickly is don't work with assholes, and that's
Work with people that you like to work with.
sorry.
Yeah. That's something that I say. That you only work with
Yeah.
people that I like to work
Yeah,
with.
you spend a lot of time with these people, so
Yeah.
you definitely should filter based on how much you enjoy the interaction and how much you enjoy working with people and sharing such a huge part of your life with them. So
Amazing.
that's the plan for the next while, is basically go around talking about it and making and making a good case for the project and what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So as I say, like I have witnessed so many projects in the last 2 years failing, some of them succeeding, but I think so. The message that I getting from this podcast is the core value that you have in gold mining, and you as an individual as well, seeing the journey, the struggle, the high, the down. But you have a product that's already working and now it's in V2, which is amazing. But this is taking me to another question about you, Mark, because I don't get many people that have been so long in fintech or and the financial technology both. And there's so many people out there. Once they want to start in Web3, crypto, blockchain, you name it, right? So many new young generation, but there's also a lot of marks that on the finance side, no blockchain, no crypto, that still hesitant to jump because that is scared. And something that you say that is remarkable is you say this, the narrative it's not that it wasn't quite there yet when you were listening to people about crypto. You weren't convinced maybe because there was no the real case of studies or the people with experience, because it's a young industry at the end of the day. But then we have you, Mark, with experience to speak to people to come on board. So what would be like three hard qualities for people that want to join, right? Like what advice would you give to young people who are just want to make the move, or people that have been in the industry of finance for a long time and want to make the move, to those two kind of people?
That's a great question. Let me first say, preface this by saying there's different types of people and different roles that people like to play. So some people are more sort of adventurous and have a higher tolerance for risk, and some people are less adventurous and have a lower tolerance for risk, and that that varies by professional background, by temperament, by family situation, by career progression, whatever. So I don't want to try to say, for people that value stability and predictability, I don't want to get in front of them and say, come join the crypto space, because it is very dynamic, and when we say dynamic, obviously that has a good and a not so good connotation. So this is definitely a space for people that have a higher tolerance for risk. And when I say risk, I mean career wise, and anybody that ever considers joining a startup, that those are people that considers it for more than half a day. Let's say those are people typically that have a higher tolerance for risk, and for those people, I would say this is early days in a brand new industry, and imagine yourself getting into consumer lending in the 60s and 70s when the plastic cards were first coming out, or imagine yourself in the 80s or 90s for commercial finance when all of the new tools and instruments were being developed, and the fun that you have sort of helping to create this new space and this new industry, and take your industry that you have a lot of expertise into a new direction. So it's hard to describe, but I think the people for whom this makes sense, for them it will resonate. And the message there is, just like with any industry, there's projects that are worth joining, and there's projects that probably are not worth your time, and you have to be diligent about picking the right one. But that's not unique to crypto. There's in the banking world, there's a very small sliver of banks, maybe 10 to 15%, that actually drive product innovation and do cool and interesting things. And then there is 80% of banks that don't do that, and that's fine. And but if you join one of those, it's probably not going to be a very exciting career either. So you have to apply that type of thinking to the crypto space, firstly, and then secondly, as the crypto space is changing so much. It's so different from 3 years ago, and 3 years ago is so different from 3 years before that. So for people like myself, maybe that have sort of taken a look maybe a few years back and said, probably I'm not ready to join yet, keep an eye out and keep a close watch, because things change very quickly. And if something wasn't there to make you comfortable, let's say a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years before, that may change very quickly. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening. There's a lot of capital coming in, and there's a lot of excitement going forward in terms of products, in terms of new businesses being built. So if you're looking to, if you have an interest in becoming part of one of those stories, then I'd pay very close attention.
Amazing. Mark, I have two more questions to wrap up. I know you're a very busy CEO. You have to run a very successful company right now. But has to be because you come from finance and you understand markets. So what are your predictions? You say that we cannot predict the future. Probably the best way to predict the future is building it, like you are doing right now, building a good, sustainable product.
Exactly.
But what, in your opinion, what are your predictions for the coming year for the crypto world in general? What do you think will happen in 2024?
uh, I don't want to say it's a prediction, because it's not. And I'm 46. I've been around the block making predictions for and it's a fool's errand. But some of the things that I'm looking forward to in 2024, I think, for us being part of the Bitcoin space, we understand that in terms of the in terms of penetration, in marketing, you talk about market penetration. Bitcoin is very, very early days. We're not, we haven't approached mass adoption yet, but I think
Mm,
2024 is going to be a very interesting year from that perspective because of the changes taking place in the U.S. specifically with Bitcoin ETFs,
mhm.
most likely coming in 2024. Um, it will be a huge sea change, because that is going to allow institutional capital. And when we say institutional capital, it's basically banks and venture capital. Well, venture capital funds not so much, but private equity funds, billions and billions and billions of dollars that have been kept on the sidelines and not able to invest in the crypto space are going to come flooding in, and that's going to have a significant effect. It will be, in some ways, it'll be a very good effect. In some ways, it'll be not necessarily such a good effect, but it will have a material effect, firstly. And secondly, it will bring us closer to mass adoption.
Okay.
So that is part number one. Part number two, obviously, we have the Bitcoin halving is going to happen next year as well. And traditionally, that has uh, been very disruptive in terms of Bitcoin as well. Now, when we say disruptive, it doesn't mean again, we're not talking about good, bad, positive. It'll be all of those.
Yeah.
But it will be disruptive. It will be. It will change the industry. We don't know in the way in which it will change it, but a lot of changes will be made, and we're positioning ourselves with an eye towards that also, because we've been doing this for a while, and we think we're pretty good at it. So we obviously want to take advantage of the changes happening in the market to benefit the company and the team and the community. So that's another big 2024 event that I'm looking forward to.
I think it's a very good opinion. I agree with both of them, and let's see how it unveils. Mark, and the very last question: how can people connect with you guys? Maybe with you on LinkedIn, or maybe with the
Mm-hmm.
company on Twitter. What is the official channel so people can go and check you out, guys?
Right. So the best place to start is our site, gmt.io,
Okay.
GoMining.io. All of our social channels are available there. There's our Medium posts also that go into detail about what we do, how we do it, the protocols, the transparency. We have on our website daily statistics about the number of miners, the hash rate, how we calculate the rewards, etc., etc. There's a whole ton of math for anybody that misses it lately. You can jump on board and dig into it. So there's links to our Telegram channels, to our Twitter. So I think that's the best place to start. And from there, feel free to engage with us in whatever way that is meaningful and convenient for you. We try to make it very clear and very transparent. Yep,
I just
that's
going
exactly it.
through the website, and also connect with the good guy from Go Mining on Twitter. So I believe it's Go Mining _ token, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Mark, has been an amazing podcast. The whole team in CryptoGs were very excited to have you on board here with us as your official CryptoG and finance
Thank
OG.
you.
But also, thank you so much from me and the whole community as well from CryptoGs to bring this expertise. It's very rare finding people come from the finance and willing to talk openly I think so. What you're doing as a CEO is very remarkable from an individual point of view, and also as a company, you are putting a product out there that getting feedback version 2, and you are just real. You have a product that's real. It's not based in speculation or based in hype. And what you say, you don't want anything that pump 2,000% and then disappears. So thank you so much for bringing this information at Minute. Mark, I hope to see you very soon in any event, either in Europe or the Middle East. And remember, Crypto G is going to be here for you. To all the audience, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for now, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.